So welcome to Thrive on Thursday with Inner Journey, the Inner Journey teaching chapter of the Centers for Spiritual Living. Here comes Lynn. Anyway, just saying that for anyone watching the recording who may not be familiar with that. So actually, if you have found our recording, you have probably found the channel. If in case you are someone who is watching this recording and is not familiar with Inner Journey, the contact information should be available on our channel on YouTube, and you can use that if you ever want to come live to one of these with us. Thursday evenings at 6:00 p.m. Central Time is when we hold them. Okay, so now just for us. I'd like to begin with an invocation as we explore the theme for Centers for Spiritual Living this month is the unstatus quo. So here are some words from the founder of Religious Science and Centers for Spiritual Living, Ernest Holmes, who says, "Out of the limitless creativity of God, I accept the flow of new ideas. My whole consciousness is alive, awake, and aware to them. I am impregnated with new ideas, and they shall bear fruit according to the divine pattern contained within them. Today, I expect new ways of doing things. I expect everything in my experience to enlarge, deepen, and broaden. I expect more good, more enthusiasm, more accomplishment than ever before. There now opens up before me a world of new ideas, new thoughts, new people, and new situations. Today is a new beginning. The divine influx now makes this day expansive and expressive of the creative source of all things." And so just recognizing that creative source of all things, I know that creative source is all around and working in, through, and as me. And as I know this is so for me, I know that this is so for each of us. And I know that there is a right action and right timing in our coming together here tonight. And so I declare and know that everybody takes with them something that is perfect for you, that each of you takes with you something that is perfect for you. And we have fun, contribute to each other's growth and development. And I know that each one of us takes away a new inspiration or action to implement. And I would like to just begin also with a few affirmations from our newsletter of the month, just to set the tone for this exploration. I am grateful that when I listen, I hear with my heart and feel compassion. I am grateful to be releasing old beliefs. I am grateful that I am letting the miracle of love and life take place here and now. I am grateful that I am willing to explore any resistance to change and move ahead with faith. I am grateful that to know that my inner self is giving me excellent guidance when I listen. And I am grateful that my everyday choices are leading me to new possibilities and solutions. Yes, and so I'm pulling from a few different sources, so please know that as we begin this exploration that I have a bunch of papers. So to explore the unstatus quo, let's start with the status quo. So the status quo, the dictionary definition said, the existing order of things, present customs, practices, and power relations. The existing order of things, but beyond that, inclusive of present customs, practices that we have in place that are really ingrained in, and power relations that can sometimes go very much in the background. And here's a few more quotes that I liked. Being quiet is comfortable. Keeping things the way they've been is comfortable. And all comfort has done is maintain the status quo. That is lovey ajavi. Well, I don't know who that is. But, here is a quote from Olympia Dukakis. She says, most of us are not real eager to grow, myself included. We tried to be happy by staying in the status quo. But if we're not willing to be honest with ourselves about what we feel, we don't evolve. And that's actress Olympia Dukakis. I like this one a lot. If people are telling you that they don't believe what you're doing, that means you're doing something out of their comfort zone. And generally, people don't want to be taken out of their comfort zone because it's outside the status quo. That is someone, Whitney Wolfe Herd. And I like this one by Lawrence J. Peter. Bureaucracy defends the status quo long past the time when the quo has lost its status. And then I'll end with this one. Status quo, is Latin for the mess we're in. That was Ronald Reagan, President of the United States. Just in case you're a younger person from another country watching this on the replay. So the status quo, I really liked, actually, wait a minute. Before I go to that, there's a poem that Reverend Lynn Hegster put in her article, and it's called The Status Quo by John Kent. If you always go where you've always gone, if you always do what you've always done, if you always seek what you've always sought, if you always buy what you've always bought, if you always be what you've always been, if you always see what you've always seen, if you always sit where you always sat, then you'll always be where you're always at. I liked that. And we laugh because it's true. I appreciated the contributions in this month's newsletter. And so one of them talked about a concept that I maybe wish I had thought of, and I would have written my article about that, but that's okay. It's by Dr. Susan Barnes Smith, and she is a naturopath. And what she said was the status quo bias negatively affects our ability to make decisions. Our ingrained preference for stability keeps us from judging different options fairly, which may cause us to miss out on valuable opportunities. And we're going to be talking about that a bit tonight, about how it can keep us from valuable opportunities. But first, I would like to reference this status quo bias that she spoke of. And it's a very real thing, and it has a lot of impacts, and studies have shown this. But the status quo bias is a cognitive bias based in emotion. Change naturally invites risk, and people may be uncomfortable putting themselves in situations where the outcome is uncertain. This tendency to keep things the way they are can have a considerable effect on how people behave in virtually any aspect of life. And this goes really far, this idea of certainty and a natural human tendency to want that a giant in the personal growth and human potential field and human development field, Tony Robbins, speaks about certainty quite a bit in his workshops and classes, and has for years. And so he says that that's one of the basic needs that humans have is this need for certainty. Even though, and we'll talk about this later, we live in a real in a world of change, in a creative, like that, in a world that is naturally and inherently creative and wanting to expand upon itself more and more. There's still, for us humans, is this psychological tendency to want that certainty, at least until we get really bored or everything starts to occur as really dull. So I was in a class with Tony Robbins, where he brought in a presenter who was an expert in neurolinguistic programming. And he referenced some studies, two studies in particular, one of which was done with people who were undergoing domestic violence. And they did a study with these folks where a whole lot of people chose to stay in the situation. And when they asked why, it was because they preferred the certainty of what was known to being to going out there and into something that was uncertain. The other study that they did was people working in very dangerous jobs where there was a very real risk of death in the job, and they found the same thing. They asked them why are they staying there, and it was wanting that certainty, that pull to what they knew. I recently took a course on time management that was really about life management and life creation and planning, and as a result, I have access to on this new software program that I'm learning, to an artificial intelligence tool that references Tony Robbins and what he might say. so I asked I asked that tool, and here's what Tony said. He said, I'm familiar with the research you're referring to. You're absolutely right. There have been some fascinating studies that shed light on how our need for certainty can keep us trapped, even in dangerous or unfulfilling situations. The studies you mentioned looked at people who had experienced domestic violence or worked in high-risk jobs. Researchers found that many of these individuals were reluctant to leave their circumstances, even when staying put their safety or well-being at risk. The reason? The pull of certainty, even if it was a negative certainty, was stronger than the fear of the unknown. As the research showed, our brains are wired to crave certainty and familiarity. Even if our current situation is painful or unsatisfying, the human tendency is to stick with what we know rather than take a leap into the unknown. This dynamic can play out in all areas of life: relationships, careers, even our daily habits. The key is to recognize this tendency and consciously work to overcome it. Instead of letting fear of the unknown paralyze us, we have to be willing to step out of our comfort zones and into new possibilities. It's not easy, but the payoff in terms of growth, fulfillment, and achievement can be immense. So I thought that was kind of cool to be able to do that reference. And I asked him one more question. Let me see whether, yeah. So I had asked him another question about it, and there is one more thing I would like to add. So he's talking about stepping out of your comfort zone never being easy. But he says the only way to create lasting transformation is to be willing to do, he says to do what others won't. And that actually, that is how he would say it. It might not be how I would say it. Thus my little reluctance there. But okay, so you have to be willing to challenge the norms, to question the way things have always been. And you know what? When you do that, when you tap into your true passion and purpose, so this is the part I wanted. When you tap into your true passion and purpose, or purposes, or desires, or desired outcomes, whatever it is, the world opens up in ways you never imagined. Doors start to swing open. Opportunities start to present themselves because the universe responds to that kind of energy, that kind of commitment. So my advice to you is this: get really clear on what you want. Reconnect with that burning desire, that sense of purpose that gets you fired up, and start taking steps, no matter how small, to move in that direction. Don't worry about perfection, just focus on progress. Because I promise you, if you keep taking action, you will overcome the status quo and create the life you were born to live. So I liked that, and I thought, let's go to an expert. This is a perfect lead-in, what Tony was just speaking of, to talk about spiritual principle. Because he was referencing there how doors start to swing open, opportunities start to present themselves. And I mentioned before that we live in a creative universe. So I also went to an AI tool with just to get a little more succinct feedback on two of the pioneers in New Thought, whose work really affected, really impacted Ernest Holmes in developing religious science and science of mind, which has now become Centers for Spiritual Living. The two are Thomas Troward and Ralph Waldo Emerson. And so I remembered these things that I wanted to highlight from, well, I can't even tell you which class it was I took, but Centers for Spiritual Living, along with Inner Journey, we do offer classes on working with universal spiritual principle, and we'll offer those on a regular basis. Should somebody who's watching this be interested in that, you can always contact us, and we can set you up with that. Or Centers for Spiritual Living also has some information on its website about classes that it offers. Anyway, just because I referenced that. So Thomas Troward was a judge in England, and his theory on infinite intelligence is very rooted in his interpretation of metaphysical principles and the nature of consciousness. And as I mentioned, he was a prominent figure in the New Thought movement, and his work was really foundational to a lot of what New Thought now teaches about the nature of life, right? and so he proposed that infinite intelligence, or the universal mind, permeates every part of the universe simultaneously. And here are some key points in his theory. First is the omnipresence of intelligence. Troward believed that infinite intelligence exists everywhere at once, and that this intelligence is not confined by space or time and is present in every part of the universe simultaneously. Eternal presence. According to Troward, this intelligence exists in every moment, encompassing all of time, past, present, and future. It is not bound by linear time and thus operates beyond human constraints of temporal sequence. 3, and this is the part that this and the omnipresence of intelligence were the ones I was really thinking of. All possibility. So infinite intelligence holds all potential possibilities within itself. Every possible outcome, solution, and creative expression exists within this universal consciousness, ready to be manifested through individual minds. 4, Unity and wholeness. Troward emphasized that this infinite intelligence is a unified whole, not divided into parts. Each individual expression of intelligence is a manifestation of the entire universal mind, not a separate or isolated fragment. And I remember that part of the reading too, because it was all of God is present everywhere. And the people I was in class with, we had never quite grasped that concept previously, and were quite taken with it. that all of it. And then the final one is manifestation through thought. And it's because our thoughts create our feelings, which then really creates what possibilities we believe exist or don't exist, what opportunities, where we can actually step into action, or where we don't think that we are capable of that. So manifestation through thought. He proposed that individuals can align themselves with this infinite intelligence through their thoughts and beliefs. By understanding and tapping into this universal mind, individuals can manifest their desires and realize their fullest potential. In essence, Troward's theory suggests that the universe is a dynamic, intelligent entity where all possibilities coexist, and this infinite intelligence is accessible to all individuals through their consciousness. That, in essence, is what I wanted to bring forward into our exploration together tonight, because that is what I had immediately thought of in this presentation on Unstatus Quo, is the idea that even though we go around wanting certainty all the time, and the human part of us is in that, the spiritual part of us and the very nature of life is such that all possibilities do indeed exist simultaneously at all times, and the universe is a dynamic, intelligent entity, and that is accessible to all of us through our consciousness. And then the second person, the second foundational thinker who I really wanted to highlight is Ralph Waldo Emerson and some of his ideas, because they pertain, a lot of them, I see it, that a lot of Emerson's ideas pertain to how we as individuals can be more cognizant of and conscious about how it is we live life, because the status quo is sometimes operates in a it's so infused in our experience of everyday life that a lot of times we need to creatively come up with ways and ask ourselves whether it's really true for us, or it's really something that we want to live into. So anyway, here's what Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was a central, if not the primary figure in transcendentalism in the United States. And he championed the idea of following one's own genius and the divine spark within. He proposed and believed that every individual possesses a unique inner light, an inherent genius that guides their true path. Emerson brought forth the idea that by trusting and following this inner voice, individuals can transcend societal norms and expectations, achieving a higher state of personal fulfillment and spiritual enlightenment. He emphasized self-reliance, encouraging people to trust their intuition and inner wisdom rather than conforming to external pressures. This divine spark, according to Emerson, connects individuals to the universal spirit, allowing them to tap into a greater collective consciousness. By honoring and cultivating this inner genius, one not only finds personal authenticity and purpose, but also contributes to the betterment of humanity aligning personal growth with universal harmony. So that's what really occurred to me as important to bring forth from from two really key figures in the new thought movement. I immediately thought of both of those ideas as being really important to the idea of our creating the unstatus quo in our life. And I'll just ask whether Sue Ellen or Lynn, whether you have anything that you might like to add right now, or any reactions to anything so far.
I like the information that you have presented. I had not thought to go back and look to see what those old guys. Now moving into the realm of old guy myself, but those that were an early part of the New Thought movement. I like the idea, for me, the idea of moving out of our comfort zone. I know that there are times when we don't want to move out of our comfort zone, even those of us that know that you don't grow if you don't move out. And yet, it's difficult to get that energy going to go, oh, wait. It's like, okay, what if I decided that I want to start a new exercise program? So then I've got to figure out what the program is that I want to start. And then I've got to figure out where it's going to be, when I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it, what it's all the little details in order to get it in my mind. And then I have to get up and do it. Take the first step, which is whatever. I can't remember who the person was, but she said sometimes you have to take them in baby steps. And so maybe the first step is you drive to the gym and sit in the parking lot. And then you drive to the gym and sit in the parking lot as long as you would have exercised. And then you drive in the gym and you go in the door and come back out.
Yes.
So you gradually have shifted your ability to move into a new direction. It's an interesting phenomenon. I belong to a Toastmasters club. We have new members that show up all the time. And there is that within them that wants to learn how to speak or do leadership or be something better than they are now. And they perceive that there is a deficiency within them that doesn't allow them to do that. And we know that it's just a learning thing. There's no deficiency within them. They just haven't figured out that they can do it yet. And yet, sometimes figuring out that they can do it takes a lot of push from themselves, not from us, but from themselves to actually step forward and join, or step forward and stand up in front of a group of people and say something. It just takes a lot. And yet, once we've stepped out of that comfort zone into the comfort zone of saying, okay, I can do this, then it's up to us to find out what's next as a challenge for us. Each one of us figuring out what's next so that we're continually being challenged. So being in the comfort zone is not so comfortable. It's actually boring, as you said earlier.
Yeah, well, there will come a point in time where it does your mind gets dulled and you get bored and you have a need for uncertainty, which is something we're going to talk about a little later, about ways that we can very simply create some new possibilities, right, in our life in really easy ways, not anything, like where you have to figure out, this or that. But since you mentioned what you mentioned, I liked this, and I had thought about putting it in, and it seems like a good time to put it in. It was in Sue Ellen's article in the newsletter, and what it said, it's a quote from Reverend Ken Gordon from the Science of Mind magazine, on page 42 in August of 2022, and it's the following quote: "I quit praying and treating for things, and instead began my practices praying and treating for the consciousness of the feeling of what I want." And that occurred to me as you can change feeling even to consciousness and whatnot. And what I was thinking was that could be the spiritual practice there of of becoming someone who works out or
Right.
or whatever it might be. And knowing, oh gosh, I actually meant to prepare something on this and I didn't, but this is a good time for me to put it in. So we, especially as we grow older and our identities, our self identities of who we are, which is all of it. It's like our our beliefs about ourselves and who we are have become like really deeply ingrained. And a lot of times we can have a tendency to not operate outside of that, right? Because it goes back to thought, being creative. Well, I saw this movie called Hitman. It's on Netflix, and it's about this mild-mannered professor who goes to work with one of the agencies. I think it was the FBI, and they were targeting people who are hiring hitmen to kill somebody, and he was working behind the scenes in some kind of an analytical deal, and something happened, and the lead guy, who ordinarily would go in and be the operative, the person that would meet with people that were planning on setting this up, couldn't do it. And so they threw him into this at the last minute, and he was so scared, but he went into it, and they gave him an alias, like a whole new name, and he stepped into that. Hey there. He stepped into that as a whole new way of being, like, well, what would this person do? What would this person say? And he was like surprising himself with some of the actions he would then take and some of the things that he would say. But anyway, so they loved him and they made him like their lead person. And he started using that thinking and feeling and that way of behaving and taking actions in everyday life. And he started using it towards his romantic life. And it had like completely different results, ones that he was happier with. And it just brought home to me of, wouldn't that be interesting to create some personas for ourselves, right? Like after I've had this discussion with people after watching that movie about what kind of, and I haven't yet created a persona, but I was thinking about that. Like, wouldn't that be interesting to do, like some night, going out in community and just myself kind of thinking of a new persona and just trying to see, like, what would I say or do, that is not something I right now might do. But so I really liked that idea.
It's amazing. If you just tried on your own true identity, you would be amazing. You are amazing.
I was thinking it could just be fun, just to, because would have you saying new things, doing new things. I guess actors and actresses get to do this all the time, but I've never done that.
I wonder how it would be if you were a good hypnotic subject, if someone hypnotized you to be that person.
I don't know. I might want to just try it out on my own first.
I'm just saying that's another that's another way of doing the same kind of thing,
I
stepping
guess,
out of that box and doing
yeah,
something, you know?
I guess so. I guess so. Any comments? Oh, okay. Reverend
Yeah,
Lynn.
I was going to say, I love Troward. I have always loved his information and the depth that of description that he goes to in getting into consciousness and his information. Emerson, I have to say, I've had a hard time understanding him, but you chose information tonight to read that was, well, that was really good. So that was helpful. You guys have had so much discussion all of a sudden the past few minutes, kind of thought, kind of get my head here. It's interesting that I can get in a groove. If nothing's pushing me or bothering me, I can get in a groove and just stay and can come up with reasons why not to change anything. And I can stay, and then my loner hermit kind of personality will kind of move right out to the forefront, and it's like it's just comfortable right here. We don't have to go out or do anything. I can do that. But once I get out, and then I'm glad I'm out. But I can sit in that status quo and not change for a while. Doesn't happen too often, especially when and yeah, but I in Toastmasters for me last week I did a talk on what's my speaking style, and took the little test, and it says I'm a supportive speaker, and I thought, well, that sounds good, and I decided that 99% of it was pretty right on key. And then I thought, wait a minute, there's this one thing, it says I don't like change, and I've always seen myself as someone that does really well with change. And then I sat with it and I thought, wow, I guess I'm really not, because of the description and letting it sit in, because things don't have to change for me for the most part. So I get in that little slide of status quo and it's there. But what I did realize looking back on history and stuff, and especially when I was married, I wasn't the one who initiate change. I'm not an initiator in that. But if something has to change, I kick right into gear, and I can mold with it, usually, depending on what it is for sure, mold with it and really do okay. But I do what's needed and communicate, accommodate is what I kind of came up with, but I'm not a change initiator. So
Well, and I guess it may depend upon, is it change that we want or change that or change that we don't want? There can
and
be.
there's some change that I don't have a judgment about, to be honest with you. I'm kind of in that space. I'm with people, I'm in a team, I'm in a group. This is what's going to happen. Like, okay, what do I do next? And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have your granddaughter?
This is my granddaughter, Brinley. She's
Hey,
8.
Brinley. Hey. Did you have anything you wanted to say, sweetheart?
No.
No.
Do you like change, when things change and get different?
No.
No. There you go.
I like when the earth changes to get better and people change to get nicer.
Well,
But I don't like bad changes. I like good changes, but not bad changes.
well, there you go.
And I do not like growth spurt changes, because growth spurts are very hard. They're really painful.
Okay. Yeah, can't do anything about that though, huh?
Yeah, it changes like in your own body. I do not like, because when your muscles can't keep up with those changes, you get a growth spurt, and growth spurts are really painful. I don't like growth spurts, so I don't like changes in your own body.
So just status quo, keeping it as it is.
Well, and we've just been talking about that.
I want to say again, you read some really good quotes and information, and I'm looking forward to going back and kind of taking notes of a couple things that you said, especially one of those last things you kind of so that was really good. I appreciate you doing that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then to kind of lead us into some ideas on simple ways that we could open up to creating new possibilities in our life and just step out of the status quo a little bit more. Today's reading in Science of Mind magazine, the Daily Guide, I'll just take a clip of it. It was from Reverend Margaret Stortz. And she said, sometimes the extent of responsibilities or the external discouragements that the world can present act as a great weight on our buoyant spirits, and we let ourselves become mired in everydayness. This is no way to be. We are meant to be curious, a bit awkward at times, maybe even not quite fitting in, but always willing to turn a new corner, even if it is outside our comfort zone. So that's a good lead in for something that I found, and I thought it was a great piece. And so I decided, let's bring it here. They didn't act, so the source is someone named Lena. They didn't give a last name, but with a website called Happily Ever Adventures. And this is 21 ideas to create possibilities in your life. And she starts by talking about like when we can like really look forward to something in life that's unusual, like when we're on an airplane heading for somewhere new that we've like, like Sue Ellen's, imminent journey to Iceland and to Norway. But I remember like when last year when we were in parts unknown, I remember thinking, oh my God, like I so don't. I just at times I actually had an anxiety. I was like, why am I so anxious about getting from point A to point B? And I thought it's because I'm in a country with a whole other language. I'm needing to be reliant on, somebody else helping me kind of get there. But anyway, there is a newness, right? And or that feeling where we bounce back after a disappointment and we're like doing something we never thought that that we could do. It can get really interesting. Or she even brings up like when you have an absolute delicious meal that you're savoring, like you're just like, oh man, So anyway, these are the ideas, and I liked them. They're really simple. And there's 21 of them. Explore a bookstore and get a book that's different from what you usually read. That one kind of hit home with me because I get the same. I tend to stick in the same categories. But just the idea that books, or it could be a movie or anything like that can take us on a real adventure, particularly one that we wouldn't ordinarily pick. Take a walk at lunchtime. It doesn't have to be at lunch, but with no predetermined destination. I was like, okay, and she just says you're going to see things that you don't usually notice when you're driving, and maybe you'll find a new lunch spot or have an adventure. The next one is go to a networking event and talk to three new people. Like, even if they don't wind up being, somebody you can do business, then it's three people you didn't know. It's just it's a fresh, it can open up interesting possibilities in the future. This one I really liked. Explore, and it occurred to me recently when I was in an area of my own town I had never been to. It's explore an area of your city or just outside your city that you've never been to. I liked that. So seeing new things is all about looking at life with a fresh perspective and going to new places and even a new landscape. It's just an idea for that. I liked this one. A woman who's in my practice group says she does this all the time. My mother used to. I don't. I don't usually. Sometimes I will. But talk to someone while you're waiting in line. I liked this one. Eat a new food every day for a week. or even take something that you eat a lot and make it in a new way. And then I added one, because what I thought of when she said that was, or order something new at a restaurant, something rather than like the tried and true or something I know I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like. Order something that I've never had. I actually think I'm gonna take that one on, because that's what I thought of when I read that. Go somewhere to people watch. Let go of a grudge if there's anything that you're holding on to, just to let go of it. Do something you think you can't do. I liked that one, or maybe that you think you don't want to do. I recently turned down an opportunity to go somewhere with a friend of mine and do something that she was proposing that I didn't have any interest in. And when I read this, I thought, that could have been interesting. Take a weekend trip, just somewhere that you haven't been. I liked this one too. Wake up an hour earlier and do whatever you want. And not your to-do list. Just something else. Do whatever you want. She said, mindlessly watch television then if you want to, or, sip a cup of coffee or tea, or write or whatever. Read a mystery book, just whatever you want to do. Go somewhere that inspires you. Just sit and do whatever you like. Create a list of small changes and tackle one a day or even one a week. Just something small. Whether it's at work or in life, ask to join a work that's outside your usual department or outside something you usually do. I liked this. In that program I was in recently with Tony Robbins, he mentioned that at his company, to keep things fresh, they do that. They have like a time each month or I don't know if it's each month, but where they'll pick out of a hat what department they're going to work in for the day, and they'll just step. And one time they had him answering the phones. He said they made a lot of sales that day. But he said another time they put him in accounting, and he was like, oh, so they don't just put you there. They actually have the person in that job like working with you, a little bit, but they do it so that people change up. So I thought that was interesting, but just if there's something of interest, ask to join that project or whatever it is. Tap into your inner artist and paint, take some pictures, dance, something, write a song, whatever. Join a group to do activities that interest you, like on meetup.com. And she says, even if you have enough friends, just go do something that interests you. There is a person online who I kind of know a little bit, and where he's been roller skating, and that was something I totally loved as a kid. And so I've been thinking, he even went and bought a pair of roller skates, but I've been thinking, gosh, I haven't done that in years. What would that be like, Then learn a new skill, whatever it is. Maybe it's a language, maybe it's something that you're wanting to learn how to do. The other one, this one I think is funny. Eat a tiny dessert. Small enough, she says, small enough to really savor every bite and small enough not to feel guilty about. And of course I thought, why a tiny dessert? But but anyway, eat a dessert. So a lot of times I don't order dessert in a restaurant. I was at a retreat, and some people wanted to go out for dinner, some didn't. I was one who did, and there were several of us who went, and they all ordered dessert, and I don't usually. And it was so much fun. Like all of us ordered a different dessert. It was a lot of fun. Break a bad habit or just something that you no longer want. And then what and then replace it with something that you'd like to put into your life. Do something that you find scary. You might find out that you're braver than you thought. I do have something that fits into that category. It's called karaoke. And then do something alone. I liked that one. And she just said it's liberating to enjoy your own company. The one time I'm like, where I went legitimately out to like a nice restaurant. Well, I've been to other nice restaurants too, but this one I was seated at a table and whatnot. It was very different. I was alone. It was really different. But it was expansive. You know, I mean, it was so but anyway, I have a friend who travels alone, and she loves it because she doesn't have to go with what somebody else wants to do. And so she says, you'll never have to wait for anyone else ever again to do something you want to do. And I have found I have gone to concerts by myself at times, and it can be easier to find seating, like open seating, things like that. And people will talk to you when you're alone that wouldn't talk to you if you're with somebody else. So that's an idea. So those are 21 ideas. You might have more. What I liked about these is that they were small, really small steps that we could take, really doable things, not big life vision changes and the whole thing. So anything y'all want to add or say at this point before we
Would you share them with the group?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, send me a copy of that. I can put it with the email.
Yeah.
There were a couple of them I was going to comment about. Now I can't, of course, remember them. That's why it'll be good to look at the list. But that last one, when I started going out by myself, when I was divorced, I also found that, especially going out to dinner, you might get a seat real quick, whereas a couple or 2 or 3 or 4 people won't get a seat. And waiters were kind, and you got in and out pretty quick. You got taken care of and you're in and out. That was good. Yeah. And I started doing a lot by myself. I really enjoyed that because I could run by my own time frame. But of course, that's not a new thing. So is that list about doing something new that you haven't done before, or just doing things that are different?
It's about finding adventure in everyday life and opening up to possibilities. I mean, as I thought about it, I don't even remember the search terms I put in. It was probably possibilities. But what I liked about it, like even the ordering something I would never think to order in a restaurant, is
Yeah.
that, like, I mean, really, because I can tend to stick to what I think I'm gonna like, just like I did when that friend asked me to go and do the I forget what you even called it, the mosaic thing with her. I had my, oh, I'm not really artistic, I don't know. And, and you know, who knows? That could have been fun. They might have had wine there, you know. I mean, I'm just regardless of whether they did or didn't, it might have been interesting, you know.
Yeah. My ending comment with this, as we start to close, infinite mind is always expanding, always
Yes.
creative, eternal, and providing the inspiration and expression for each of us. And I don't know that I had actually put that together with this title until some of the things you had said or read tonight. And it's almost as if you would have to work harder to stay in the status quo. I mean, if you're meditating and doing your work as we promote, our spiritual activities and our daily spiritual stuff, if you're doing that, it would take more energy to stay in the status quo than to just be and be open and allow spirit to keep you creative and to be okay with trying something new and different.
Thank you, Lynn. So for anybody viewing this, if you would like to make a contribution to the Inner Journey chapter of the Centers for Spiritual Living, there are a couple ways to do that. One is to send a text to the number 405-337-9739, and there will be prompts that come up to assist you in that. The other way, and I also just want to mention this as a reference, the homepage is inner-journey.org, inner-journey.org. And that also, there is a place to donate, but there's also a place to sign up for the newsletter and get more information if you would like to do that.
Your word.
Oh, and if you do make a contribution, there's a drop-down box, and you can choose the word vision. Vision. Yeah. Yeah, and so with that, I give great thanks for our time together this evening, exploring the unstatus quo. I give thanks for everything that has come about, and I trust that each one of us takes away something that for any new idea and inspiration and action to implement, but something that makes a difference in your life. And so I say, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, infinite intelligence. Just loving and knowing that all possibility exists simultaneously, and that we do live in a creative universe that is ever expanding and available to us. In fact, interwoven into the very fabric of life and our lives, allowing us to do so. And so we do follow those glimmers that Emerson speaks of, that are there for us, that is spirit speaking to us as ours, as our personal expression in this lifetime. And so for all of this and our perfectly appointed time together, I give great thanks. And I do release this unto the loving law of life, allowing it to be so. And so it is.